GM Growth Fam, time for another episode. Today I have with me Kseniia. Kseniia, as you probably already know, if you know even a little bit about Web3 marketing, that she is a fractional CMO, has been a CMO for a lot of notable projects, Orca, Polkadex, you name it. And obviously, she's had a lot of experience working with a bunch of different projects over the past 5 years. So I'm really excited for this conversation to dive deeper into what it all means. How do you do Web3 marketing, so on and so forth. Kseniia, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting, and thanks for such a great intro.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you is, and this can also sort of lead into a little bit of your story. Obviously, you come from a Web2 background. You've been doing marketing for, I think, close to 10 years, if I'm not wrong.
In total, I think it's like about 12 years now.
Wow.
I'm at YouTube
Lovely.
for 5. So yeah, been a while.
Awesome. That's lovely. And obviously, you have a great following on Twitter as well. So, my first question to you was actually going to be, what was your first tweet on crypto Twitter?
That's a good one. Because to be honest, I really don't remember. I figured quite recently that I had Twitter before my crypto life because I thought
Hmm.
I never touched Twitter before. And I think if I kept my personal Twitter, I would be a proper KOL because there was so
Wow.
much drama. Like I was reading the tweets and I was like, oh my God, what was happening with this girl? And then I'm like, oh, wait a second. Literally nothing was happening in my life, but it was just like very intriguing. With
Hmm.
Twitter, I jumped on the wagon very late. I think I started posting quite a lot since autumn in 2024. Before that, I was kind of dabbling in that because I think I doubled my Twitter following in a very short time span because I just started posting daily and just realized that. First of all, there is a lot of interest to marketing and crypto now. There are a lot of new marketers, and there are not so many resources where they can learn. And I just realized that like something that I'm going through on a daily basis or some experiences that I had, like whether it's marketing wise, whether it's just like something professionally, like psychological, any other like management struggles, people really are going through the same things and just decided to share more. But for the first tweet, I think I was just for the longest of time, I was just retweeting what my projects were doing and doing something like so happy to announce and all of this.
This is a public service announcement for anybody out there. If your Twitter is just retweets, don't worry, you'll get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, lovely. And I noticed that you actually worked at Skyscanner, which
Mhm.
I'm sure if anybody who's traveled anywhere has probably used that website once in their lifetime. And I wanted to understand, like, and I've heard you talking about it, some of the experiences that you had, but what is like the one learning from Skyscanner that you bought into Web3?
I think of two learnings, like one on the marketing side, the importance of content. Because at Skyscanner, like funnily, my marketing stack was exactly the same as is bread and butter in crypto. So my marketing stack was content, social media, partnerships. I started influencer marketing arm for Skyscanner because for some reason they were not working with KOLs on like a proper basis. And we also started dabbling with online and offline communities. So then when COVID started and no one was traveling, I was like, when I joined crypto and I realized that this is exactly what I was focusing on. Because to be honest, when I worked at Skyscanner, I worked in growth marketing and all the channels that I have are organic. So it's difficult to like tackle growth here because it's different from traditional growth stack. Like there is nothing paid, right? It's not like you put $1 and then you see $10 return. So I always felt kind of odd. When I joined crypto, I was like, ah, makes sense. Finally, this takes the center stage. So first learning is content. And the second learning, I think importance of cultural fit and soft skills over hard skills because I had a very like funny situation with Skyscanner. Applied for the role that like 50% of the description of this role, it wasn't me. Like I had none of those technical skills. Like they wanted somebody who knew how to code in Python for some reason. They wanted somebody who knew how to work with large data, SQL, and like a lot of things that I've never even heard of before. But I was just like, okay, I love traveling. I like marketing. I have some like good experience in marketing. Let me just apply just in case. And then I passed, I think there were like 7 or 9 rounds of the interview, and they put a lot of importance on the culture. It was basically like I was hired for the cultural fit because the way they worked was very different from any other company. So we worked in growth squads. We had to come up with new ideas every week. So it was kind of like, similar to what we do in crypto now, because you always have to be alert and you always have to create different things. So it's not just like planning a year in advance and then just like sitting on this plan. And this is what I see in crypto now, that I think a lot of people don't have the needed skills, especially when you're just joining the space. But at the same time, if you have the grit and if you want to learn, you're going to be hired because eventually you will grow into the role you're in.
Absolutely. I was actually very good transition to my next question, which is going to be you've personally spoken about that marketing is 50% marketing and 50% management, right? And management is probably one of those skills that is for some reason really lacking in maybe let's say 80% of marketers that are in the industry. What are some, let's say, practical tips that you have learned in your experience being in crypto, being in Web 2, that makes a, especially a mid-senior level person, because that's generally, and I'll get into that later because I've heard you talk about who the first marketing hire should be. But what are some practical tips that you can talk about here?
Yeah, I'm recently very vocal about this because I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I think there are quite a lot of people who are managing community and they think that because they know community aspect, they can run marketing. In reality, I think, and this is why I was saying that the first marketing hire has to be a generalist. And there was so much resonance because I called this person a CMO or head of marketing, and people went ballistic on this. But what I meant is that you want to hire somebody who knows how to talk to multiple stakeholders. Because basically, marketing is never just about marketing, right? I really think that this is a business function and you plug in marketing into all your other business processes. So let's say, like now, for example, I'm working with startups at different stages, and a lot of them are on a pre-seed stage or like raising seed round. So it's never just like us doing things in marketing without any feedback, right? Whatever we do, we have the feedback from current investors. We have feedback from potential investors, from builders we're trying to onboard. We have feedback from community, from different people inside the team. So you have to understand how all of them think, and you have to, it's obviously difficult, right? Because like as much as we try, we cannot think like developers. It's like completely different concepts. But at the same time, I think it's important to kind of zoom out and put yourself in the shoes of different stakeholder categories and think what they might want to see from you and how they might see your trajectory. But at the same time, I think there's a pitfall here that you actually don't have to account for all the feedback that's happening. Like you have to take it in, you have to process this and be just like, this works, this doesn't work because of XYZ, and give kind of a clear direction to your team.
Would you also say that some part of it is, how should I put it? Is there, and this probably goes back to the point of having soft skills and being able to communicate effectively, so on and so forth. Do you feel like a lot of that is just the disconnect between technical founders and the marketers that are maybe struggling to communicate the value of certain things to them? Like personally, and this is something I spoke about in a previous episode, is that I feel like bear markets, especially the kind of market that we are in right now, are a really good time to consolidate and be able to bring in more members that are maybe feeling disillusioned with the market itself. So it's a brilliant time to acquire people, acquire users at a really low cost. But to communicate this to a technical founder who's probably trying to say runway, how do you do that? Like, how have you personally done that? I would love to know that.
Yeah, that's definitely it's a great question. First of all, I think I personally love bear markets, and I think bear markets were some of my most fruitful times, just solely because there is not as much attention from the community, but still at the same time you can build proper community because just people who are interested, they still stick around, and it's less stressful for the team because they, especially if the team has a token. There's not so much pressure from everyone around. But in terms of communication, I personally geek out on psychology. So I think like sometimes I'm kind of observing people and I'm like, "Ah, so you thought this and that because of this and that." And what I figured, developers and technical people, they think in completely different terms. Think from my understanding, us as marketers, we think as a general picture. And like anyone who's not on the developer side, who's not on the technical side, we think about like overarching concepts. And then from there, we build a pipeline of smaller tactical steps. For developers, from what I'm observing, I think they think in smaller steps that later on lead up to the greater vision. So sometimes when I'm saying things like, we need to figure out positioning, I can see that they don't understand why we cannot, like, for me, without the positioning, I cannot write anything because whatever we write, it's not going to click because it's not going to be clear. I cannot explain it to people. For them, they really don't understand this. And I think there is a lot of frustration from marketers because it takes a while to realize that your perception of life and your view of life is completely different to basically everyone. Because even between us marketers, right, we will think completely differently. Something that is a no-brainer for me, and I might not even mention this, it's completely new information for somebody else, just because we're exposed to different information, we had different experiences. And I think with technical people, this divide is even further apart because sometimes, like even when we're on calls with product teams, I'm asking a question, they're explaining it to me in one sentence, and I'm like, guys, I think you think I'm smarter than I actually am. Like, I do not understand. I need like 5 other questions to get it straight.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And a sort of follow-up question to this that also attaches really well is there's been, at least for the past 3 months since I've been observing it, there's been this huge debate on founder branding, personal branding, so on and so forth, right? If communicating to them the value of going ham in the bear market is that difficult, how do you convince them, like, hey, having a presence on Twitter is really, really important for you? And obviously, some of them understand, but I think where it gets tricky, and this is something even you've spoken about, is you cannot try too hard or it'll backfire.
Yeah.
How do you, because to a marketer, it might feel really natural because we do it, it's their job. Like we understand the mechanics of that. But to a founder, you can give them a template, you can give them a playbook, you can give them strategies, you might even give them a ghostwriter to copyright for them, but it still needs to be them. How do you communicate that and then lead that as a piece of the puzzle, the larger marketing strategy?
Yeah, that's a journey. I think personally, I don't like to push people too hard because on one side, you definitely want to do founder marketing. But if you have founders who don't want to do this, right? It's essentially it's their company. You cannot like force, you were hired by those people to help them. You cannot force them to do something that you want them to do. I think from my perspective, you can advise and you can help them to set this. Let's say with one of the projects that I'm working with currently, um, I was really pushing hard on doing live streams, and founders were not on board initially. But then we started having internal product and marketing calls. And first of all, I realized that they're explaining things in amazing terms, like everything clicks straight away. The whole team understood it straight away. We have like a bunch of content going out based on that. And it's easier for them to explain everything in just like audio format or oral format versus the written format. Because when they write, they try to be concise. And there are a lot of things that are impossible to understand when they're concise. And I think what helps is breaking things into smaller steps. Like, let's say we decided to do kind of a training live stream just to see how they feel, just to see like whether people are joining or not. We had over 1,000 views on that. And I think the founder enjoyed it because they realized that this is like literally 20, 25 minutes of their time that they can allocate weekly. But from there, community gets a lot of questions answered. Their marketing team gets a lot of cool points for content. And we can basically take the stream, clip it, and we can use it for weeks going forwards. So I think it's just like Twitter is addictive, right? So I think we both know because initially when I started posting on my personal account, I was just like, oh my God, it's like another job. I have to post it. I have to answer. Now I'm obsessed I'm like, GM guys, what's happening? And I think I'm posting at some periods of my life, I was posting even like from 5 to 8 times per day. And I had people that I know just telling me that I'm all over the place. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice it because something came to my mind and I'm posting it straight away because I really want to share. I think it becomes the same for founders, but it's like you need to gamify the experience sort of for them. So they need to,
Almost hack their brain into like, yeah, okay, that's how you do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's amazing. Another thing that is also has been all the rage on crypto Twitter right now is vibe marketing, which personally to me seems like a really stupid word, but it's exciting to a lot of people because they think at some point these annoying marketers will go away and we'll have full freedom to give a prompt to GPT and have a full marketing strategy, essentially duplicate the work of let's say a 10 people marketing team. What are your thoughts on that? Because I personally saw this announcement that Adobe made a little while back on this full stack of AI agents that can do multiple different things, so on and so forth. What are your thoughts on web marketing? Number one. Number two, do you feel like marketers in any way, shape, or form should be worried about AI agents?
Great questions again. I'm really loving, I told you this personally, but I'm really loving your lineup of questions because I feel like they're very different from the usual ones. On the vibe marketing, to be honest, like, first of all, I don't fully understand what's that. I think it's like, Riz was all the rage like a couple of months or a couple of weeks ago. Now I think it's just vibe marketing. Nobody understands what's that. It just sounds cool, sounds provocative. Everyone posts about it. But then another thing, I just remembered when I was at Premia, one of our founders just posted something about options and then said that vibes at 24/7. So we used this phrase like all the time because we had a very DGen community and it really worked well with them. So I think like vibe marketing was always in crypto. It's the only thing that was in crypto. Now we're actually adding some essence, structure, and some traditional practices. Because to me, at least, like what I think about vibe marketing is all this community feel or like some funny things that you can add through design, through memes, and all of that stuff. So I think it was always there. It's just like, we need to tweet about something. So now we're tweeting about vibe marketing. On the AI part, I personally don't think that people have to worry about anything in terms of AI. From what I know about AI, I think it's going to be quite a long time until we will be replaced. And at least how I view it, I think there are certain aspects, exactly like your hard skills can be replaced. Your soft skills cannot be replaced because it still takes a human to operate it, right? You can definitely write let's say even a marketing strategy in ChatGPT, but it really depends. Like you need to figure out the prompt, you need to fit it right information, you need to talk with it. And only after you will get the finished result. If you just then, I was doing like multiple tests throughout the past couple of weeks. I was just feeding different information to ChatGPT and it was providing me completely different information. Like at one point, it gave me the strategy that cost like, I think it's at least 5 million from everything they wrote. And I'm like, okay, I have a pre-seed startup. This is like my budget is $5. Work with it. And then it's a completely different strategy. Then they came up with something community focused. I'm like, we have a different product. We're B2B, rework. So I think AI is a great help if you know how to use it. But I personally haven't seen companies that are solely building all their marketing stack through AI. What about you? Have you seen any good examples?
Yeah, so like the way I perceive it is one, I don't know if it's a show or a movie because I've not really watched it at full length, but Mad Men
Mhm.
is something I've seen a lot of like clips of it and on YouTube. Specifically really fascinated about there was this one clip where they were pitching to a bunch of cigarette companies, right? And the pitch essentially was it's toasted, like that was the core of the messaging that they were trying to put out there. Like all there are, let's say, four cigarette companies that are all the same, but then one of them or a few of them are toasted and it makes them sort of special when you think about it goes back to the psychology thing that you said, right? Like the assumption that AI is going to take over everything assumes the fact that humans are completely rational beings. Everything will follow like a step-by-step process. Okay, everything has an SOP. Everything has metrics defined, KPIs to hit, so on and so forth. And then we're going to tell the AI to do it, and it completely goes out and does it. It doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
right? The industry that we're in itself is based on a lot of irrationalities within human psychology. So I just feel like assuming the fact, and that's why I feel like the whole notion of wide marketing or people being able to build marketing strategies through ChatGPT, so on. Like one instance, a company that was trying to get me on as a consultant said, like, yeah, we got a marketing strategy built to ChatGPT. So like, why is it costing us X dollars from you? I'm like, best of luck. Go ahead, implement that.
I love those questions. Like, why are you charging for this?
Yeah. So I personally feel like it's a the fear of AI in itself is an irrationality.
Yeah.
So it's a really beautiful thing when people say like, okay, like AI agents and all are going to replace us. I personally don't feel like that. I don't even feel like long term, even if you can have a bunch of stuff that the AI could do or it could become a subject matter expert, you would still need a human in the loop to figure out whether that's practical or not. Because, like I said, right, it goes back to the rationality thing. The budget fits, the strategy fits, and it absolutely will work. It's brilliant on all fronts, right? The same thing we could do, the same thing the AI could do. But now, how is the AI going to convince the founder to spend $10,000 on a campaign when they don't want to do that?
Mhm.
Rationally speaking, it makes sense and it's going to deliver the results that they're looking for. But it's only a human that could actually sort of talk to them and talk them into like, okay, yeah, this is really going to work and you should do that.
No, you're right. This is the part that a lot of people miss. Like, we are irrational. We don't do like if you think about your day, we don't do that many things rationally, right? And especially our purchases, let's say, because I started working in luxury marketing for luxury brands and fashion. Let's say Dolce Gabbana scarf costs $10 to produce, but they sell it for even $500 or even higher. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that people are buying iPhones, let's say. It's not the best phone, but we buy it for the feeling because you walk with your iPhone and it symbolizes like a certain status. You are in the cult. And it even goes to more serious purchases because I think for me, I used to have my family business, which was the healthcare facility. We've been working with children with cerebral palsy, like different genetic diseases. And I was doing marketing for us, and we focused a lot on social media, which like initially I had a lot of pushback because we've been working like with really great doctors and they were just like, she's cuckoo, like, oh, why are we Instagramming this? And I tried to show every single step of the journey because my thinking was that we're asking people to, like, first of all, give quite a lot of money because it's an expensive treatment. Secondly, we're asking them to fly overseas to bring their child to, like, we're not doing anything invasive, but still like there's a lot of trust involved in that. So my thinking was that the more I show, the easier it's going to be for them because it will create a feeling that they've been here. They've seen like they know everything that's going to happen with them during this 2 weeks period. And funnily, we had our clients so the clinic was based in Italy, and we had clients flying from Gulf countries. And then at one point, I realized that they've never been on the website. They saw the videos, they saw the explanations on Instagram, and they just immediately sent an inquiry. And when I was asking them, like, why, how did you trust us, they were like, yeah, we thought that we understand everything is happening because like your doctors are speaking here, you're showing the success, like from point A to point B for other children. And I think it's exactly the same with technology, right? So, like, whenever we choose something, we don't choose the things that are the best for us. We choose the things that we understand the most, that we connect to the most, and it holds in any industry.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But just to sort of address the newer marketers that are entering the space, what are some of the, because we understand, yeah, it might not be able to replace us, but it does cut down on a lot of entry level work. So somebody who is entering the space as a marketer, what are some of the skills that you feel they should be focusing a lot of their time and attention on?
Probably multitasking. It's gonna sound bad, but then, I have a friend who's a very successful investment banker, and we had this debate with him maybe like 5 years ago before I joined crypto. He obviously works very long hours, and I was always like, doesn't make any sense. You don't have life, you just work. And then we had a debate because he told me at first you put hours into your work, and then your work gives back to you because you work through this experience. I think I understood what he meant just recently because like initially when I started in crypto, it was also COVID times and there was like not much to do except working 24/7. And I've been really like waking up at 7 a.m., opening my messenger, responding to messages and like going to sleep at 12 or at 1 and wrapping off for the day. And wearing like multiple hats from like everything you can do in marketing to investor relations, like business decisions, all of that, because I was interested like in everything that's happening in the team. And I eventually burned out, which I think inevitable. But then I think it's a great learning curve because you can see how everything works from the inside. So I think for new marketers, the advice that I would give, don't do everything, but try to tap into multiple areas of your project. Just talk to people who are on the development side, understand what are their struggles, what they want to do, like how they work, because eventually you're going to be kind of very closely paired with a product. So you need to understand their process and where to press and where to kind of pull off. I think also learn a lot from other projects and especially from competitors. I think a lot of founders, probably 99% of founders I talk to, whenever you ask them who are your competitors, they say no one. This is not true. Like you might not have somebody who's doing 100% the same thing that you do, but you always have indirect competitors, like people who are tapping into the same issue, people who are providing similar solution or like part of your solution. So I think it's really interesting to look at them not from the perspective like, haha, we're doing it better, but from the perspective that they already walked the same walk you are planning to do. And you can see what worked for them and why it worked. You can see what didn't work for them and how you can tweak it, or like maybe it's just a bad idea altogether. And I think you can like basically kind of steal a lot of ideas from people who are already doing that because there is no playbook, but there are definitely some things that work better than others.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Just on the competition front,
Mhm.
right? When we talk about the hyper competitive niches within our industry, generally speaking, the two sort of growth hacks or let's say campaigns that I've seen being leveraged the most, it's going to be a combination of points plus airdrops. So a campaign structured like that, or it's going to be, or it could also be a combination of both, but a lot of projects focus on that. A lot of projects also more heavily focus on just posting on Twitter and then maybe replying to some accounts, so on and so forth. Are there any, let's say, examples that you've personally observed in the industry that was in a hyper competitive niche? Obviously, you work for several DEXes, so you have that perspective. But maybe either DEXes or any other like hyper competitive space where there are tons of players. What kind of a strategy or let's say a growth hack that's worked really, really well for them? And you feel like, yeah, that's a standout. That's something that I'm going to bookmark and keep in the back of my head.
Yeah, for DEXes, definitely this is probably the most overcrowded niche. Second, I would say would be lending and borrowing. But I think with lending and borrowing, it's more straightforward because you just, if you are able to give a higher percentage, you're already winning your chunk of the market. But with DEXes, there is not that much differentiation. Like you can create something like aggregation, for example, but there are already other aggregators. So the first thing that came to my mind when you said overcrowded and DEXes, I think Jupiter, who are absolutely killing it. And I know from experience that in a super short period of time, they just stole so much market share from other OG DEXs. And I probably haven't seen like this much of attention grab in a while in crypto. But I think what they've done right, they differentiated really well because they're very degen, they're very fun to watch. They have all this video content, and I think they were some of the first who started like this aggressive video marketing strategy. They got a lot of attention from Solana ecosystem, like worked with super team very closely, basically onboarded the super team as part of their internal team. which always works because you don't want to do one-time engagement campaign. You want anyone who's KOL or sort of a KOL to be like an extension of your team. And in this case, it really works organically well for you. But I think when it's overcrowded, you need to be more creative, because if you cannot work out your victories product wise, you can think how you can differentiate and how you can grab attention. And I personally think that the easiest attention grab is design and branding, just having something cool and having something degen, because it's always easier to win on like fun things, on jokes, on some community craziness, and just let their imagination run wild versus doing a very polished brand. Because still crypto identity, even for B2B brands, we still want to see something fun and crazy. And like, let's be honest, the jokes that crypto people laugh at, like when I'm sharing something that is hilarious for me with my Web2 friends, they're just like, what's wrong with you? And for me, I'm just like, oh my God, how did they come up with this? So I think humor always works. Cool visuals always work. And if you can pair this with a product that is still strong, but doesn't have that much of a competitive edge, this is going to move the needle for you.
What do you think about, let's say, everybody says product market fit is really important, but what do you do when you're in an industry that in itself as a whole hasn't hit product market fit yet?
Yeah.
But that's an aspiration that everybody wants to build towards. But maybe, especially from a product standpoint, what do you feel like? Okay, maybe you've not hit product market fit just yet. Maybe a lot of it is still the strategies that you're implementing and you're getting users through that. It's not all of it, it's not inbound just yet. But from a product standpoint, what are some of the pieces of advice that you would give early stage teams to integrate within their products to give them an edge, maybe take them a step closer to product market fit? And I especially want to draw this parallel from your Web2 experience with Skyscanner. Maybe some of the things that you noticed over there, because even they were in a space where there is probably a lot of competition, but from a product standpoint, they had a advantage there.
Yeah, I think from my previous experience, Premia fits really well into this category, because by the time I joined Premia, I worked on DeFi for a couple of years, and I was thinking that like I know how it works, I know the playbook. When I started working with Premia, I'm just like, why nothing I'm doing has any result? Like zero response whatsoever. And then I realized that I think options are still like somewhat untapped, filled in crypto, because it just it's not the greatest product market fit for the current clientele that we have in crypto, because we still have, I would say, like 70% degens, 30% people who have any solid background and who don't want to lose all their money potentially when they click one button. But I think people still use perpetuals, right? Because perpetuals are more fun. And when you're in crypto for a long time, you kind of have this mentality that it's either all or nothing. For options, it's geared towards a more traditional type of user. Like you have to actually want to hedge. And for crypto people, it's like, why would I hedge it? Like, where's the 100x from that? Like, okay, I'm not losing, but what am I winning? So this was one of the learnings. And then I started talking with community members, especially OG community members who were with the protocol for like since its inception, since they started building. And I think community, and not just like hanging out in the community, but actually asking questions to people who are there, who are using your product. This is one of the alpha techniques that not so many marketers are using. But everyone is very approachable, right? So you can just directly message them. We were at Premia, we were conducting like video interviews. We were just asking community members if they're okay with us giving them, let's say, $100 for their time so that they don't feel like we're usurping them, or like giving them some utility inside the product, some tokens, anything that they're interested in, and just like directly asking them why they trading on Premia, where else are they trading, why they like it, what is inconvenient for them, what features they want to see, and like any questions that can help us shape our marketing and shape our product as well. And we came up with a lot of questions where people were just saying that great product, everything works well. I just don't understand how to trade options. Like I've set up the trading process. I lost $1,000. Didn't even understand why. Like where did that come from? So we started doing all the marketing around education. which worked really well for us. Like we built out a proper academy after that, gamified it, and people were actually using it. But I think the trick here was that we did not force them to trade on Premia after. It was more like, we really want you to learn because our space is tiny, and it's still like, um, the results that I have from Premia compared to the results that, let's say, we had at Orca are laughable. Because for options, if you have like 2,000 people trading options per day, that's a huge win. If you have 2,000 people on your DEX, something is not working here. Like more like 20,000, 200,000. This is the numbers you would like to see. So I think, yeah, user interviews, education, huge emphasis on education, basically whatever you do, because you are winning, you help people. It shows that you provide value. You get a lot of content on this, so you have more views. You get quoted a lot for this, and also you went through SEO. So whoever is new to the space, they're going to Google things, and you will come up for this.
Sounds amazing. I think um, that's probably I was going to ask you this question, but I think that's the unfair advantage, right? If not a lot of marketers are spending time asking questions with their community, they're not really neither building the community, neither engaging the community. Because if you can incentivize getting feedback and then implementing that feedback and using that as, let's say, the insight into then building out everything else that you're going to be doing, which seems like obvious advice, but it's almost hysterical of how many marketers just don't do it, right? I don't
Yeah.
know what they're afraid of, but I personally like spent a lot of time in Telegram groups. Like whenever somebody's spreading FUD, I always sort of step up and ask, like, okay, like let's take a beat. Let's try to understand where the problem's coming from. Is there feedback that we could take? Is there anything that we can change and implement? So that's really, really, really solid advice. And then the final question, Sanya, that I have for you is, what's the new marketing meta that you're paying attention to?
Interesting. You mean in terms of marketing tactics or?
Yeah, marketing tactics, basically, yeah. Let's say it was points and airdrops before. What's the next one?
I think it's the evolution of content, because what I'm seeing now, there is a lot of focus on video content versus written things, and especially on short form content. I think it's paired very nicely with the fact that Twitter is really pushing this narrative. Like Twitter is trying to overtake TikTok, Instagram Reels, and everything else. And also, I've seen that live streams are performing so much better compared to spaces. I even did some tests on my personal account. Let's say for spaces, I had a really cool guest, but we had maybe like maximum 100 people who joined. Then I kept inviting cool guests, but I was doing live streams, and I was doing 4 live streams week after week, and I progressed from 1,000 people on the stream to almost 3,500 people like watching. I don't know how the views account there, and if it's really 3,500, I'm very happy. I like unique people, unique views. But at the same time, I think it shows that people want to see something and it's more engaging. And I think it again comes back to building the personality, like not just being the product, but being a brand that is backed by people and their personal brands.
That's really awesome advice, Senya. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up. I think personally I've learned a lot, especially on some of the, let's say, the more fringe ideas that we generally don't pay attention to within crypto marketing, because it almost becomes like a echo chamber of personal branding is important and here's the 5 ways to do that. And another tweet comes in like they stayed 5, I'm going to stay 10. And so you sort
Yeah.
of it becomes an echo chamber. So I'm really glad that we touched upon a lot of different things. And thank you so much for doing this. I hope you had a good time. I hope the audience that's watching learned a lot. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you, Sanya.
Thank you so much for inviting. Great questions.
See you all. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.